It's crashing terrible. Oh my, get out of the way, please. Terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, the humanity.
Let's see that instant replay.
In this video, we're covering my top 10 combat tips, starting with El Matador. These famous bullfighters from Spain are renowned for baiting a bull into attacking. We'll attempt to do the same here with Durthert's cavalry. The first technique, we remain mounted, right up to the edge of a cliff, and quickly move before getting skewered.
Now that's a lot of damage!
This reminds me of my favorite childhood game, Lemmings. The second technique can be done on foot. We need to find a small ledge and wait just above it. Be sure to move your horse as it will stop some of the enemies from going over the top. We raise a shield, crouch down, and get pushed over the edge and watch the horses gracefully fly overhead. It's so hard to do this section without laughing. You have no idea. Okay, one more just for fun. I ended up dying in this run, but we took out over 80 by ourselves. Not bad. Did you know you can get your horse to strafe sideways? It's a little tricky, but by holding A and tapping Q, you can strafe to the left, or hold D and tap E, you'll strafe to the right. It's useful for dodging arrows or moving in tight spaces. There are two ways to speed up. You can press and hold W or double tap. We can see a huge speed increase by double tapping forward over a short distance. The same can be done for slowing down or stopping. Be sure to use both of these at all times. When trying to dismount, the beginner way is to stop, look at your horse, and press F. Instead, press and hold Z as it will stop the horse for you and dismount with a single key regardless of where you're looking. Running into objects causes a long stun, making us extremely vulnerable. Instead, double tap S right before impact and you'll avoid the stun most of the time. It can even be used with the Z dismount tip for an instant dismount from full speed. This is useful when trying to pick up ammo from the battlefield while minimizing the time that we're an easy target. My most frustrating experience with Bannerlord has always been fighting while outnumbered. It can seem impossible at first, but let's look at the best tips to come out on top. Even if the enemy is faster than us, it's difficult for them to land a hit because they slow down the instant they wind up for a swing, buying us time. We can use our wide left and right swings to attack enemies behind us without actually turning to see them. Attacking from the left hits at the very start of our swing, while attacking from the right hits with the very end follow through of the swing. Both are really useful, although swinging from the right tends to land more often because the AI has trouble identifying that it's a swing. This effect is even more pronounced with a long swingable polearm, easily hitting the enemy from a safe distance. When fighting large groups, always try to move backwards at all times, but also move in such a way that the front target blocks the path of those behind him, making only a single enemy able to attack. It's much easier to block one attack than two in a short time frame. If you're ever cornered by a large group, hold a high guard and try to move to the sides. They won't be able to attack from left or right because their friends are in the way, and vertical strikes are more common than the thrusts. Work on blocking as it's incredibly important for survival in melee combat. It's especially important at low athletics levels. And finally, when you're outmatched, run and be patient. There's no time limit to battles, so take your time. Find the right moment when risk is low and attack. Find safe places to strike out from and keep moving. I use this technique to take out many city gangs by myself and reach level 20 character in less than 30 in-game days. It's also quite lucrative, earning 50,000 dinars and a noble bow and mid-tier armor. Speaking of a great early game start, mounted archery is by far the best way to level our character and reach clan tier 2. Archers are no joke, so avoid them as best you can, using cover to take them out. Fighting off melee infantry is where the money is though. These militia spearmen are too slow to catch us and too stupid to think of something else. We simply slow down, allow them to drop their guard, and pop them in the face. Villages can be soloed from day 1 using this technique. This screen is from my recent clan tier 2 speedrun, where I was able to achieve all these levels and become a vassal in just 4 days from the start of the game. Mounted archery is OP. Being effective with a couch lance can be tough, but hopefully these tips can help. We need to make sure the target range will cross the path with the tip of our lance, so it's much better to aim further than you think you need to. In this case, we aim to the right of the target. The lance will eventually cross the path of the target and hit. If we aim too close to our horse, we risk missing him entirely. The damage output from a couch lance blow is almost entirely based on relative speed. With no speed difference, the blow bounces off harmlessly. At very low speed difference, we barely get over 100 damage. Just a little bit faster and we hit for almost 400. And against a foot troop, it's a staggering 600. Be sure you keep a large speed difference between you and the target. Cavalry archers always make an easy target, especially in the early stages of battle. Targeting enemy cavalry is also a good idea since they're usually on the wings and quite passive. Don't charge into the formation from the front, but instead the back or the side flanks. Against high tier cavalry, the rear flank is the most effective. Once the battle is well underway and enemy formations enemies are either engaged or scattered about, we can start picking apart archers and the shield wall. With archers, feel free to treat them like bowling pins, running straight through them. Against a shield wall, it's best to avoid charging from the front. Even with their formation broken apart, it's easy to get bogged down with infantry. Instead, I like to run the length of the line and pick off units out of position. They rarely spear you or the horse when doing this since their focus is on the enemy, so ride close to the shield wall and get to couching. Similar to the couch lance, the pike brace is difficult to learn. We equip the pike, stop moving, and press X. I find it's much easier to target the horse while learning how to aim. It's a big target and pretty hard to miss. If you're still struggling to hit, aim all the way down to the floor and you should hit something. Dismounted cavalry are a much easier opponent than mounted. With a little practice and some confidence, we can aim for the rider now. One thing to keep in mind, if we aim the tip of our pike at the enemy's head, we will most likely miss by the time they reach us. The orange represents the path of Durthart's head as he approaches, meaning we will need to lead him by aiming to the right. Notice here, we aimed at the head and luckily hit him in the shoulders. Aim further than you think you need to land a good hit. Cavalry are blinded by rage and will charge directly at you no matter the cost. We easily force them into a tree by sidestepping until they're lined up. And finally, the walking brace. Pressing tab will cause our character to walk instead of run. Press X to activate brace mode, and notice we're still moving around while braced. This is incredibly important, as small adjustments will often be needed when being charged by multiple cavalry at once. The turning speed is very slow, so be sure to aim in the right direction early. Right where you belong, old man, in the dirt. Did you know the enemy can get a free mini stun on us? It's incredibly frustrating, but hopefully with some awareness, we can avoid it in the future. If the enemy makes direct contact with us, meaning they physically run into us, we will be mini stunned if we have a ranged weapon equipped. It's even worse when using a javelin. Using the shield to block is irrelevant, as they can just walk into us and stun attack. Avoid getting too close to the enemy if we're trying to use a ranged weapon, and switch to a melee weapon if they do close the distance. Now let's talk about overall strategy for fighting in massive battles while mounted. Early on, focus on horse archers as they have no shield and easy to dodge their arrows. Next, we harass the enemy cavalry from the wings, avoiding a direct charge and coming around the back or the sides. In order to avoid being shot, speed is the key. Try to keep movement speed maxed at all times. Moving behind an enemy makes it impossible to block our attack. My favorite moment of the battle is when the shield walls collide. We can sway the balance by slamming into the rear of their formation and riding straight through. If you get stuck, keep double tapping W and moving left and right to wiggle through. If the enemy formations are scattered, we can ride through safely and pick them off with ease. As you charge a line, be sure to turn into the length of it, causing as much charge damage as possible. Most units take between 15 and 35 charge damage here, which means they'll die to our units' attacks much sooner than if we didn't charge them. It never gets old, does it? Picking off archers should be done with extreme caution. From behind is best, with great speed, even better. But slowing down and turning into an archer group from the front will always end poorly. Defensive sieges can be really hard to participate in, but with these tips, they can be almost guaranteed. The first example, we use our own castle. Take all the units out of the garrison and release them back into the wild. This will weaken the fief's strength, causing enemy lords to come out of the woodworks to get a piece. Even small groups will siege us down that normally wouldn't because of how weak the fief now appears. It's a great way to level up engineering with siege engines or get some athletics and bow skill by picking these idiots off the ladder. Shooting fish in a barrel. Even if we don't own a fief, we can still get in on the action. Become a mercenary or a vassal, wait for a siege to pop up, and head there. It's best to sit nearby, letting the enemy start the assault before we break in. We'll know it's taking place when the enemy's numbers start to rapidly tick down. Click on the castle, break in to help, go ahead with that, and voila, we're inside with the option to immediately join the siege defense. However, my absolute favorite technique is the bait and switch. We load up with our best units, drain the garrison of the fief, and sit somewhere nearby and wait. These two goobers come strolling by to take what they believe is an easy target. Again, we need to wait for the assault to begin. Now we spring the trap. With 50 tier 1 and 500 tier 6 units, we lose 24 of our elite troops, or about 5%. We can reduce this number further by adding more low tier troops and getting a bigger variety of them. Testing it again with 80 other trash units from 9 different unit types, we see a huge reduction in breaking in. Only 9 this time, or less than 2%. And since we're on defense in a siege, we can use the huge boost to auto-resolve and wipe the Empire scum off the map. So you have just enough troops to win a siege, but need all of them to survive so you can defend it after? No problem. Let's just solo the defenders. As soon as we enter the battle, retreat all units by pressing F1 and F7. They will exit through the rear of the map and preserve their numbers. Once enough of our troops have left, the garrison will open the gates and melee units will stream out after us. Be sure to stay in the very back of the map, as defending ranged units will continue to shoot, and because it's a siege, they have infinite ammo. We can use the tip from earlier, baiting the enemy infantry to lowering their guard and shoot them in their face. Now we can enter the castle, since they kindly left the doors open for us. Be sure to close the door so they don't come back in. Don't forget to wiggle your heart out to avoid those arrows. Most towers have arrow barrels we can access, allowing us to stalk back up and pick off the archers. Try to keep the tightest angle possible, as it's easy to get shot with so many archers still alive. Once the archers are dealt with, we need to finish off the melee units on the outside. If they are far enough away, we can use their own siege engines to pick them off. We don't have a good angle in this case, so back to the bow. Most of them have shields, which complicates things only slightly. The AI knows when we're aiming at them, but tends to drop their shields between shots. Keep shooting and eventually they'll drop their guard for you. Stay near an arrow barrel for easy reloads. And just like that, we own the castle without losing a single troop. If you think taking a castle solo is cool, then you'll definitely like this next video where I take out a whole Sea Raider hideout solo, starting with no weapons or armor. Hit that like button and I'll see you on the next one. A huge shout out to the YouTube channel members and Patreon supporters who help keep a small channel like this one alive. Obrigado. It can EB and sit some to the rear and preserve the